DeSantis Foundation for Freedom, Family, and Faith. Hi, I'm Anne DeSantis, Executive Director. In 2015, the Mercedarian Friars came together because they wanted to start a foundation to help families in crisis. And that's exactly what we've been doing over these years. Whether it be something to do with divorce, separation, trauma, job loss, loss of a loved one, or other adversities, we've helped so many families get through those tough times through the spiritual works of mercy. We'd love to hear from you. Please do get in touch with us for our services. They are prayer, priestly consultation, podcasts and videos, and programs and events. We look forward to hearing from you. Just go to nownottous.org and get in touch with me. I look forward to hearing from you. God bless.
Fiat Ministry Network and Patchwork Heart Ministry present Journeys in Faith. Now, here's Anne DeSantis.
Hi, and welcome to Journeys in Faith here on Fiat Ministry Network. This is Anne DeSantis, and I am joined by Julieann Richer. She is a friend, a paralegal, and also a single mom who's going to offer her faith journey to us on this evening. So, Julieann, thank you so much for joining us on Journeys in Faith.
Oh, hi, Anne. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much.
Yes, we have so much to talk about. I mean, you and I have had some conversations about your faith journey, and I know that you had faith from a very early age. So I thought maybe during this half of the show, just tell us a little bit about your Catholic faith journey.
Absolutely. Well, it started at a young age. It goes back to my grandmother. I always attribute her to the one that taught me how to pray. She had a devotion to the little flower. And I didn't realize how big of an impact that have later on in my life. And, but my journey, it's one of humble, childlike reliance. So I was married young. I'm a single mother. I was married young. I was married by the age of 24. I had my first child at the age of 25. My second child at the age of 26. I was in marriage counseling at 27, and then my marriage I was divorced at 28. So I had a very fast pace journey into a disaster. And it was always my dream to be married. I thought that's what God was calling me to do, to be married, to be a witness, to be a mother, to be an example of what it meant to be a wife. And it's interesting because it seems that I thought that I was meant to be a witness to those around me and show what a beautiful, strong marriage looked like. But instead, I realized that it was in my brokenness and in my pain that I was able to touch more souls and bring more souls closer to Christ. So, like I said, I had 2 children. I realized early on in the marriage that it wasn't a holy marriage. And it was actually my faith that led me to go for the divorce and then eventually the annulment. So it was because of my respect and reverence for the sacrament of marriage that I needed to take this journey.
Yeah, you and I have talked about your journey because we're friends, and it's always good to communicate with a friend that you trust. And I have always appreciated listening to your story and getting to know you better. And I have to make a shout out to our common friend, right, who introduced us for the show. It's Derek Fiorenza, who has also been a guest on Journeys in Faith. and he was the one who recommended you for the show. So I thank him for bringing us
Okay.
together so that we can discuss how God has worked in your life. Now, as a matter of fact, you and I have talked about the fact that the foundation that I represent is the St. Raymond Nonatus Foundation for Freedom, Family, and Faith, where we have a charism for families in crisis. And we've done a lot of work with families affected by divorce and separation, just like yourself. And so I really do give you much credit for the fact that you have stuck with your faith during a challenging time. As you described that so well, you were married, had children at a young age, but although you tried very hard and hoped to work things out, and unfortunately you did wind up getting divorced, getting that annulment, but you did all the right things for what the Lord would ask of you.
No, let me tell you a little bit about my personality. Now, the way that I was wired, I have a type A personality. I am very organized. I like to plan ahead. I like to know what's expected. So because of that, I feel as if I was planning and I wasn't letting God plan for me. That's the problem, and that's when pride comes into play. So, the most beautiful act of faith is the one made in darkness, in sacrifice, and with extreme effort. So it wasn't going on this journey of thinking that family and everything's going to be easy. That's not what God was trying to teach me. So, I mean, there was a lot of wounds that bubbled over through this whole process, but it was for me. It was to bring me closer to Him, to realize what I should rely on is He, not my plan. My plan is flawed.
Yes. Unfortunately, we're having slight technical difficulties, but I think what I got from what you just said and our audience was that you were naturally sort of, like you said, that type A personality, someone who, you probably didn't expect that this kind of thing would happen to you, but it did. But out of that darkness came the light and came for you to be able to make it through one of the challenging times of your life. And if you've done so successfully too, and I also have to just commend you because you've held on to your faith and taught the faith to your kids too, which is really so very important. And so tell us about, now you're a single mom and obviously you are balancing so much. There's a lot of people watching this show, I'm sure, who either maybe they are affected by divorce in some way, maybe it's a friend, a sister, an aunt, whoever that is, or a brother, someone that they know. Would you have any kind of words of wisdom for them about how you've been able to hold on to your faith and your children during a challenging time?
Oh, yes. Well, first, ever since I was a little, and this simple prayer stuck with me, it was, Jesus, teach me how to love you better. And I think that through this whole journey, I was taught how to love my children by doing it myself, by raising my children Catholic, by reaching out to those that are in similar situations, encouraging them, telling them to be strong, listening, just so they can share the burden with me. But in those little ways, I feel as if I have learned how to love Christ better through those people that have entered my life, and being a mother and doing it. I mean, every single act as a mother that seems or can appear to be meaningless or simple can be a prayer and can be turned into a prayer, whether it's doing the laundry or doing homework with your fourth grader, studying for a test, doing that project late on a Tuesday night, or just cuddling your children and holding them and taking time to do that. That is all turned into a prayer and an act of love that glorifies God.
That is so good. And you said at the very beginning that your grandmother had that charism and that prayer to Saint Therese of Lisieux. And certainly the way that you're describing that is the way of the little flower, the way of love, and the way of patience with other people, right? And giving of ourselves. So you've done such a good job with that. And I know you continue to do it because your children are, still in that grade school area, that time frame.
Yes.
And you're going to be getting probably continue to be busier, right? With as they get into the middle school and well, they're already there and even into that high school range. So I think you're doing an amazing job and just give you tons of credit. Now, during
Oh,
the
thank
second half
you.
of the show, we're going to talk about what you do for a living, a little bit about the fact that you are a paralegal and what that's like for you. And tell us also, when we have that conversation during the second half of the show, we'll talk about what it was like for you to balancing all of that too, right? Because that's also something that you're balancing parenthood, you're balancing work, your kids, and you were also balancing going to school at that point in time. So
Yes.
we are going to take a couple minute break. So join us again with Julieann Richer. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Journeys in Faith on this Friday evening with Julieann Richer, my friend. She's a paralegal, a mom, and she also talked with us during the first half of the show about her experience as a single mom, as she was divorced and annulled when she was in her 20s. And I just want to thank you again for sharing that because it takes a little bit of vulnerability to share on a podcast like this. So we appreciate your sharing of yourself and of your faith.
Oh, thank you, Anne. Absolutely, absolutely. The more souls I can touch, the happier I am. Truly.
So good to hear. Now, I wondered if you could talk a little bit about your work because you are a paralegal. You balance that with having, raising your kids, being a single mom, and working full time. So tell us, for those who aren't familiar, what does a paralegal do, and where did you get your education from?
Yes. So paralegal supports attorneys, whether that has to do with document review, drafting documents, as well as filing with the courts, dealing with clients. But this was a whole new adventure for me because I was actually a preschool teacher when my children were young. Because when I did get the divorce, my children were only 2 and 3 years old. So, I chose a position that dovetailed around their schedule. And then as they started to get older, I decided to go back to school. So I completed Villanova University's paralegal program. It's through their law school. And that was extremely grueling. I absolutely loved it. My children were in school. They still needed help taking baths, doing all of those necessary things that young children need. I was also working full time as a preschool teacher, and then I was going to school at night. And after I completed that, it came out on the other side of it. And then I got a job at Progressive In-House Counsel, as supporting 2 attorneys.
Yes, I know that keeps you very busy because we've talked about that before, and I give you so much credit. What is it like for you also just balancing every week? Because I know that your kids, they go to Catholic school. In fact, I know the school they go to, which is St. Helena's in Bluebell, PA. It's a wonderful school,
Yes,
wonderful pastor there too. And
yes.
you're balancing kind of dropping them off at different places, to visit their father and also their activities. What is that like for you just as a mom, and maybe any helpful tips that you have for those single moms who are doing so much just like you, or single dads too, right?
Yes, absolutely. So my main piece of advice is to be softer on yourselves. Be softer because you're doing it by yourself. And I mean, even if you have that other parent, I mean, I have amazing supportive parents who help me. I honestly, I wouldn't be able to do it without them, but be softer on yourself, be kinder to yourself. And this goes out to the type A people and parents, just like I am. You're going to have laundry that's not folded. You're going to be exhausted. You're going to maybe sometimes be late to some of those events, but be softer on yourself. Be softer, because you're not perfect. And it was also a humbling journey for me. Like I said, the type of person, the way that I'm wired, it was that childlike reliance where there were times when I didn't know how certain events were going to play out. And you just have to let go and let God.
Yes, that's exactly right. And I think that's good for anybody who's watching, who's in crisis or trauma. I know that right now you're not in a trauma, but you were before, and
Yes.
you've learned so much, but it's wonderful advice just for daily living. So I think that's a beautiful thing. Now you mentioned devotion to Saint Therese of Lisieux and prayer and how all that is so important to you. Is there anything else just about your Catholic faith and maybe sort of like daily rituals that you might do in prayer, or anything that you might do to kind of keep you on track?
So sometimes when life is busy and it's kind of spiraling out of control with the girls' schedules, my work schedule, and just providing for my family. Sometimes I would hold this guilt that I didn't have enough structured prayer. And what has helped me is just allowing myself to be silent and just to sit there with the Lord in silence and just say, Jesus, I love you. Jesus, I trust in you. And then Blessed Mother, pray for me. And that is a prayer that I have given to my children. When you have nothing else to say, sit in silence, be at peace, and let God talk.
Oh, that's such good advice. Wonderful advice. I mean, I'm taking that in for myself because I think we all need a little more silence in our lives. We live in a world that's just so busy, and as much as many of us would love to go to adoration as much as we can, or even daily mass, it's not always possible for every person to be able to do that. So I think that is wonderful advice. Let's talk about the kids too, because obviously you're instilling in them faith, you're sending them to Catholic school, they're receiving their sacraments. I know that you said that your family was a faithful family. You yourself were educated by Catholic schools, and you feel very positively about all of that and about your faith. What is it that you teach your kids in order to hold on to their faith? Is there any practice or prayer practice that you share with them in order for them to stay close?
Well, no, both of my children, they've received the First Holy Communion. So they've received that sacrament. So what I always say to them, and they always kind of make fun of me because they're like, I know, Mom. But I said, no matter what happens in your life, no matter what, there's going to be good, bad, ugly. Run to the Eucharist. Always run to the Eucharist. Never, ever, no matter how you feel, go to church, receive the Eucharist. Nothing can replace the Eucharist. No other religion has it. We are so lucky and blessed to be Catholic. And that is something that, I mean, I was just speaking to my daughter the other day about it. I said, do you understand how fortunate you are that you are being given this religion, and this is such a gift that you have that's right in front of your feet. And it's food for the journey. So, I mean, if they remember anything that I taught them, I'm sure I nag my children all the time, but if they remember anything, it's the Eucharist. Please stay close to the Eucharist.
Terrific advice, because guess what? Right now we're in a whole Eucharistic revival in this country. The United States Conference of Catholic Bishops has suggested this, and Pope Francis, of course, is really promoting it throughout the world. So it's a wonderful thing. Glad you mentioned that, because it is really the source and summit of our faith. He is the source and summit of our faith. And that is just great advice for the kids. I thought we could go back to those people who are watching. As I said, I'm the executive director for the St. Raymond Anonymous Foundation, where we make that pastoral outreach to families in crisis. I'm sure somebody's watching and thinking, I wish I had her faith. Would you have any other words or wisdom? Say somebody's in the middle of some kind of a trauma. Maybe it has to do with a separation or an impending divorce or something. What was some advice that maybe helped you when you were going through some challenging times?
So I have to say that it was very difficult. I felt there was a lot of shame associated with what I was going through. A lot of shame that I felt because it was a broken marriage. I felt there was a part of me that felt that I was going to be judged by the Catholic community. And it was just the exact opposite. There was so much support that I received. And I needed to allow God to do whatever he needed to do with my situation. So I naturally went into that mode of, okay, how do I fix this? How do I plan? What do I do? And the greatest lesson for me personally was just not doing anything and just listening to Christ. And so I guess, Anne, getting back to your question, that my advice for those going through it is that, and my friend actually gave this advice to me, and it's beautiful advice. If it's still a mess, it's not over yet. It's not over yet. So don't stop. It's not over yet, because God wants us to have peace. He wants to have peace. He wants to have fulfillment. So if it's still just a mess, it's not over yet.
That is terrific advice. I mean, I think that's good advice for anyone, whether they're going through divorce, separation, or just some kind of real crisis in the family, whatever that could be. So I just thank you. I want to make a shout out, though, to the audience, too. You might be thinking, well, how can I get help for a crisis? If you can check out our website at nonatus.org for the St. Raymond Nonatus Foundation, we offer free pastoral care for those who are in trauma and adversity. So just thought I would mention that as we're talking on that topic, right?
Oh, yeah.
Is there anything else, though, that you would want to share in terms of your faith with this audience? And I'm just so grateful to have you here because, we're just admittedly, we're kind of just getting to know each other through our common friend, Derek Fiorenzo. Very grateful to him for bringing us together. But I didn't know if there's something else that you just wanted to share with the audience as we head toward the end of the program. I think we're having some technical difficulties there. There we go. Okay. Okay, my apologies. I think we're having some technical difficulties on the other end. So, Julieann, can you hear me? Are you here with us?
Yes, Anne, I can hear you. I can hear you. I apologize for that.
Oh, no, absolutely. Absolutely. So I was just saying, if there were any end sort of ending thoughts that you have or anything you would want to share as we come closer to the end of the program.
Anything that I want to share, just be softer with yourself. Reach out to those for support and realize that whatever we think that we have planned for our lives, God has something bigger, God has something better, but we have to let him do it. And like I said, a lot of shame that I felt a lot of shame with the breakdown of my marriage, but I also think that God allowed so many wounds inside of me to bubble over so that they could be healed. And so it was a cross that I grabbed onto, and I'm starting to see the fruits of that cross and holding close to that cross right now in my life. So like I said, if it's still a mess, it's not over yet. It's not over yet.
What a great way to end the program. If it's still a mess, it's not over yet. That's so true, because that gives a lot of hope, right? And really what life is all about is hope, especially we're not in heaven yet, right? So we are on a pilgrimage. We're on a journey, like Journeys in Faith, just like the name of the program, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So thank you so much, Julieann, for being a guest on my show.
Oh, thank you for having me, Anne. It was my pleasure.
And would you have any websites or any place that you would like to direct people to find out more about any any of your activities. I know that you're a paralegal, and any other prayer websites that you like to direct people to. Or books.
Sorry.
Maybe there's some books. No, it's okay. I just wasn't sure. Sometimes people have special resources that they like to recommend. But we're just so
I should have
grateful.
prepared.
No, we're grateful to have you. I gave our website, so they can always just check out us too, in terms of that pastoral accompaniment. Julieann, thank you so much again for joining us.
Thanks.
And God bless all of you. We will see you here next week on Journeys in Faith with Anne DeSantis on Fiat Ministry Network. See you then.
Journeys of Faith is a production of Fiat Ministry Network and Patchwork Heart Ministry. For more information about Journeys of Faith, email info@fiatministrynetwork.tv. And be sure to friend, follow, and like us on social media. Just search Journeys in Faith with Anne DeSantis.